The 1970s was a real golden age for leading men in Hollywood. From Robert Redford to Jack Nicholson, the list of famous eligible bachelors was endless. But the actors you crushed on in high school have changed a whole lot over the last few decades. Some have sadly passed on, while others have built legacies for themselves and are still going strong today. So get ready for a cozy trip down memory lane, because these are your favorite 70s heartthrobs, then and now. 1. John Travolta. Few stars shone brighter than John Travolta during the 1970s. After scoring a breakout role in the TV show Welcome Back, Kotter, the actor starred in 2 huge movies back-to-back in the space of 12 months. Of course, we're talking about Saturday Night Fever and Grease, earning an Oscar nod for the former. Just like that, Travolta became a Hollywood heartthrob, and the world seemed to be his oyster. An epic comeback. But then, it all threatened to come tumbling down. The 80s was a real barren decade for Travolta, as he struggled to replicate his past success. Fortunately for him, everything turned around in 1994. Pulp Fiction revitalized the actor's career, bagging a second Oscar nomination in the process. Travolta has since scored a number of other memorable roles and is still working today. 2. Jack Nicholson. To say that Jack Nicholson was firing on all cylinders in the 70s would be a major understatement. Between 1970 and 1975, he was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, before finally taking one home in 1976 for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was a staggering run, made all the more amazing by what Nicholson was going through at the time. The actor found out the woman he thought was his older sibling was actually his mum. Talk about a bombshell. Iconic roles. Nicholson then solidified himself as a Hollywood legend as the years went on. He bagged iconic parts in movies such as The Shining, Batman, and A Few Good Men, while picking up 2 more Oscars. When the actor was on, no one could touch his manic intensity, but we haven't seen him on the big screen since 2010's How Do You Know, which seemed to mark his unofficial retirement. 3. Al Pacino. The Godfather. Serpico. The Godfather Part 2. Dog Day Afternoon. Most actors would have given anything to star in just one of those movies in the 1970s, but Al Pacino was the leading man in all of them. Not bad for a guy who only had 2 film credits to his name up until 1972. He was arguably the hottest act in Hollywood during that period. Banger after banger. And while the following decade was a lot quieter in comparison, Pacino started firing out more bangers from the 1990s onwards. He even won his first Oscar in 1993, following 7 failed attempts. As for his personal life, Pacino's never been married, but he does have 3 kids. It's been quite the journey, and his career shows no signs of stopping just yet. 4. Mark Hamill. After taking on several smaller roles in the early part of the decade, Mark Hamill's life changed forever in 1977. Yep, he starred in a little movie called Star Wars. You might have heard of it. But thanks to the film's gargantuan success, the actor became a must-watch talent in Hollywood. Hamill then followed up his turn as Luke Skywalker by getting hitched 12 months later, which no doubt broke a few hearts. Surprising resurgence. On the acting front, though, Hamill's career threatened to fizzle out when the original trilogy came to an end in 1983. Yet he enjoyed a surprising resurgence in the 1990s thanks to his voice acting. As it turned out, he had a real knack for it. In more recent times, he returned as Luke in the Star Wars sequel trilogy between 2015 and 2019. It was great to see Hamill on the big screen again. 5. Christopher Reeve. When it comes to dreamy Hollywood stars from the 1970s, few could touch Christopher Reeve at the height of his powers. Just 4 years on from making his small-screen debut, he fronted one of the biggest movies of the decade in 1978's Superman. Reeve was absolutely perfect in the title role, winning legions of fans in the process. The guy couldn't have asked for more. Tragedy strikes. Reeve went on to play Superman 3 more times in the 1980s, while appearing in other projects as well. Mind you, everything changed in 1995. That year, the actor suffered a horrific injury that left him a quadriplegic. Remarkably, though, he didn't abandon the spotlight after that. Instead, Reeve created his own foundation to help bring in money for research on spinal injuries. Sadly, he passed away in 2004, but his legacy continues to live on today. 6. Erik Estrada. By the time that Chips came around in 1977, Erik Estrada already had a decent amount of credits to his name. But the TV show catapulted his star into the stratosphere. It was tough to name a more popular or a likable actor on the small screen across that spell. Estrada even earned a spot on the 10 sexiest bachelors in the world listing inside People magazine in 1979. Real-life cop. After appearing in close to 140 episodes, Estrada's time on Chips came to an end in 1983. From there, the actor continued to carve a solid career for himself and is still working today. Yet away from the screen, Estrada has also served as a real cop in Idaho while fronting the Drug Awareness Resistance Education Program too. Talk about versatility. 7. Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman had roughly 10 years of on-screen acting experience going into the 1970s, and he didn't waste any time in leaving his mark at the start of the decade. Yes, Hackman cemented his burgeoning reputation by winning an Oscar for The French Connection in 1972. Then he followed that up with a string of other hits, including The Poseidon Adventure and Superman. Not bad for someone who was considered least likely to succeed in their theatre class, right? A well-earned retirement. Off the back of his breakthrough decade, Hackman didn't slow down in the years that followed, starring in a host of different movies. Yet for fans of the Hollywood great, it all came to an end in 2004. Welcome to Mooseport marked the actor's final performance before retiring from the business. Even now, there aren't many other stars who can touch Hackman's incredible career. 8. Barry Williams. Was there a more famous television series in the 1970s than The Brady Bunch? That show helped define the entire decade while also making stars of its cast, which included a young Barry Williams. He played Greg Brady and subsequently won the hearts of teenagers around the world. They couldn't take their eyes off him, but the small screen phenomenon didn't last forever. Moving into podcasting. The show wrapped up in 1974. Mind you, that wouldn't spell the end for Williams. While he struggled to find a role that reached the heights of Greg Brady, work was still coming in. The actor even bagged a small part in 1995's The Brady Bunch movie. Today, though, Williams is busy fronting a podcast titled The Real Brady Bros, recapping each episode of the iconic series every week. 9. Roger Moore. Roger Moore was already a veteran actor when the 70s rolled around. Still, none of his previous projects came close to matching his latest movie in 1973, Live and Let Die. Yep, that film marked his James Bond debut, and he reprised the famous role 3 more times before the decade ended. Thanks to his debonair demeanor, Moore became a major Hollywood heartthrob at the time. Conflicted feelings. And while he did do other work post-Bond, Moore was still probably best known for 007 up until his passing in 2017. But when reflecting on his later movies in the franchise, the actor didn't dress up his thoughts. Moore noted, "I was too old to be hanging around women in their early 20s without it appearing creepy despite feeling that way." His suave performances as Bond continue to endure. 10. Robert Redford. Robert Redford secured his status as a Hollywood superstar in the 1970s. From The Sting to All the President's Men, he was on fire. Upon reflection, though, the actor admitted he didn't see any of that coming as a youngster. Speaking in a 1980 issue of Success magazine, he said, "I was a failure at everything I tried. I worked as a box boy at a supermarket and got fired. Then my dad got me a job at Standard Oil, fired again." Who could have predicted that? Finding a younger audience. Following the 70s, Redford continued to showcase his talents as an actor and director. His output eventually slowed down as he got older, but the quality was still there. Plus, he introduced himself to a younger audience by joining the Marvel franchise in 2014's Captain America: The Winter Soldier. By the time Redford finally retired in 2020, he was far from a failure. 11. Kurt Russell. Best known for his work as a child actor for much of the 1970s, Kurt Russell changed that perception with one performance in particular. Yes, he starred in the 1979 TV movie Elvis, taking on the lead role. Just like that, Russell showed that he had the acting chops to become a bona fide Hollywood star. His Dreamboat appearance didn't hurt either. Significant accolade. Now, Russell remains as active as ever. Following a great run in the 80s and 90s, he's recently been in two massive franchises, the Marvel and Fast and Furious film series. Russell's also worked with Quentin Tarantino 3 times since 2007. And if that wasn't enough, the actor finally earned his spot on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2017 alongside his girlfriend Goldie Hawn. Well deserved. 12. Michael Gray. Decades before Shazam. Hit the big screen in 2019, the characters first appeared in a 70s television show. It ran for 2 years between 1974 and 1974 and 1976, turning its lead actor into a star. His name? Michael Gray. As Billy Batson, he appeared in all 28 episodes. Considering Gray only made his on-screen debut in 1969, he was in a pretty sweet position. Retired? Nope. Yet when Shazam came to an end, Gray decided to walk away from acting, and for the longest time, that appeared to be it. In 2015, though, he launched a surprising comeback via the animated series Archer. But the near 4-decade hiatus was over. Recently, eagle-eyed fans might have spotted Gray in a small cameo in 2023's Shazam. Fury of the Gods. Pretty cool, right? 13. Robert Duvall. There aren't many actors who can say they had a better run than Robert Duvall in the 1970s. This guy appeared in movies such as MASH, THX 1138, The Godfather, Network, The Godfather Part 2, and Apocalypse Now during that period. And he was great in all of them. You'd struggle to name a more consistent Hollywood star at the time. Charity work. Duvall then carried that on in the decades that followed, cementing himself as an acting heavyweight. That's not all, though. In addition to his work in front of the camera, he's also gotten involved with charitable organizations as well. For instance, Duvall's been known to help the Texas Children's Cancer Center. As for his career, his latest movie was released in 2022. He's a machine. 14. Clint Eastwood. It's fair to say that Clint Eastwood was well on the way to becoming a Hollywood legend prior to the 1970s. But then, he smashed down his marker. From the Dirty Harry movies to the outlaw Josie Wales, Eastwood starred in some of the decade's standout films, showcasing his unique brand of charisma. He also made his directing debut in that spell. Mayor Eastwood. Since then, Eastwood hasn't stopped acting or directing. His latest effort was 2021's Cry Macho. At over 90 years old, that's quite incredible. Yet the versatile star has done stuff outside of film throughout his career, too. To give you a surprising example, he was the mayor of Carmel, California, for a couple of years in the mid-1980s. Not many Hollywood icons can say they held a similar job. 15. Robert De Niro. After getting his start in the 1960s, Robert De Niro's career hit new heights the following decade. He racked up credits such as Mean Streets, The Godfather Part 2, Taxi Driver, New York, and The Deer Hunter, winning an Oscar as well. It was a jaw-dropping sequence that most actors can only dream of. Everyone sat up and took notice of De Niro from there. The hot streak continued. And De Niro's hot streak didn't end in the 70s. Raging Bull, The King of Comedy, The Untouchables, Goodfellas, Casino, and Heat all came off the back of that period. Plus, he's still going strong today, with 10 upcoming projects in various stages of pre- and post-production. It's so cool to see a Hollywood titan showcasing their talents after nearly 60 years in the business. 16. Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier secured his place in Hollywood history back in 1964. You see, he was the first person of color to ever take home the Best Actor gong at the Oscars that year. It was a very important moment, and Poitier didn't rest on his laurels. Throughout the 1970s, he continued to display his undeniable talents via his acting and directing. A Grammy winner. Poitier's final big-screen appearance came in 1997's The Jackal, but he didn't disappear after that. Instead, the actor penned a spiritual autobiography titled The Measure of a Man in 2000 and won a Grammy for the book's audio edition. How cool is that? Poitier was handed the Presidential Medal of Freedom 9 years later as well, prior to his passing in 2022. His impact on the film industry will never be forgotten. 17. Burt Reynolds. While his iconic mustache wasn't always around in the 1970s, Burt Reynolds still established himself as one of the leading men to beat that decade. His turns in films such as Deliverance, White Lightning, and Smokey and the Bandit were utterly brilliant, with the actor's incredible magnetism on full display. It's no wonder he was a sex symbol back then. Huge number of credits. By the time Reynolds' career was over, he'd racked up a whopping 186 acting credits. That's some total, right? But the star didn't retire. He sadly passed away in 2018 while he was still actively working. Reynolds was all set to appear in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood prior to his death. Bruce Dern eventually filled in for him. 18. Ryan O'Neal. Ryan O'Neal might not have the name recognition of other 70s stars, but make no mistake, he was a big deal back then. The actor starred in 1970s box office smash Love Story before working with two Hollywood heavyweights. Yes, O'Neal was cast in the lead roles of Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon and Walter Hill's The Driver. He couldn't have asked for a better spell. A struggle. But what happened after that? Well, O'Neal was still finding work post, as yet he struggled to grab roles that matched up to his earlier movies. The actor did enjoy a little bit of a resurgence in the TV show Bones, as he appeared in 26 episodes from 2006 to 2017. Things were a touch brighter away from the screen, though. O'Neal teamed up with his Love Story co-star, Ali MacGraw, to front a play titled Love Letters in 2016. 19. Calvin Lockhart. After kicking off his acting journey via the theatre, Calvin Lockhart enjoyed a very fruitful period on the big screen in the 1970s. One of his most famous roles came in 1975's Let's Do It Again, where he portrayed a character named Biggie Smalls. But little did Lockhart know that that would lead to a future controversy with a rising music star. Legal battle. In honor of Lockhart's character, rapper Christopher Wallace adopted the name Biggie Smalls. The actor was far from happy with the spotlight that was subsequently put on him, so he filed a lawsuit against Wallace. The musician then switched to the notorious B.I.G.,